Hello, Paul. Thank you for joining us today and for sparing the time to help us with our postgraduate students in this collaboration between the Top Chartered Management Institute and Coventry University. So really warm welcome to you today.
Thanks very much. It's good to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So firstly, it would help if we could just start by you telling us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about the organisation that you're representing today and what it does.
Sure. So my name is Paul Unwin, and my role is a regional lead sponsor in our Smart Motorways programme. And I look after the M1 corridor. So that's all the new Smart Motorway projects all the way along the M1 corridor for Highways England. So Highways England was established as a government company in 2015, and we're funded on 5-year cycles known as road investment periods. So the first one was 2015 to 2020, and now we're at the start of the 2020 to 2025 second RIS period, called RIS2, funnily enough. And our role is to deliver the government's roads investment strategy. We design, build and operate the main strategic road network, and that really is the motorways and the A roads. And we have one shareholder, and that is the Department for Transport, the Secretary of State, and we look after something like 4,300 miles of motorways on the network. Average 4 million drivers a day every day use our network, which carries about 33% of all traffic and 66% of freight. So it's critical to the economy, obviously.
Yes, of course, yes. Can you tell us a little bit about how it's structured? Obviously, you've talked a little bit about your area particularly, but just how your organisation is structured?
Yes, of course. So in terms of my bit of the organisation is called Major Projects, but we've also got several other bits. There's our Operations Directorate, which looks after all the maintenance on all those thousands of structures that we've got on the network, from lamps to technology to drainage. A huge amount of maintenance works goes on, usually overnight. It's kind of a Cinderella service. It's great if you don't see us, but a 24-hour service that we do that. Then we've got our Traffic Operations Service. So you may have seen the vehicles, traffic officer vehicles going around the network. So we monitor, we've got cameras across the network, monitoring congestion, but monitoring incidents as well. So as soon as an incident across the network, we'll dispatch our traffic officers and help and assist and support motorists and road users if they get into difficulty on the network. So that's that. And finally, we have a something called SES, which is a standards part of the organisation. So they develop standards and monitor standards and develop new ones for us as well. We're quite a forward-looking organisation, lots of innovation, and over the next 5-10 years, I think we'll see even more of that when we look at kind of connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles as well. So very exciting time to be involved in the kind of transport infrastructure.
Yes, of course, I can imagine. Because as much as other alternatives are sought, the roads and the motorways are still, I'm sure, the biggest have the biggest usage, don't they, in terms of carrying freight, as you say?
Yeah, I come out with a little story. The work that we do directly affects the price of your fish fingers.
Is that so? That's a good story. Do tell.
So obviously the fish is captured on the North Sea or whatever, and goes into Grimsby and into a distribution, a processing warehouse. Then using lorries and freight across our network to go into a distribution centre. And then using kind of freight to go into the Tesco's or Morrison's or whatever close to you, and then you will probably go in your car along the network to pick up those fish fingers with your weekly shop. So we can only keep kind of goods and services cheap if we keep the motorways running freely. And so absolutely the work that we do keeps you shopping cheaper and keeps your fish fingers cheap as well.
That's a really good story to give us some context. Thank you. Are you able to tell us of any current and potential future issues or challenges that are facing your organisation at the moment?
Yeah, so we don't have to go and think very hard for the challenges at the moment, obviously under COVID
Yes.
19, and we've had to really think about how we operate our network. So since lockdown in March, we have all continued as a business working on our road projects. We had to think and working very much to Public Health England guidelines around social distancing and safety. Safety is our number one imperative for our own workforce, but and also road users as our customers as well. But we found ways to do that. So taking a lot of time thinking about, so important to keep the economy moving, to keep key workers available to go to hospitals, ambulances, emergency services, keeping freight going, for those fish fingers as well, because people need to eat.
Yes.
So it's really important. So working very much with Secretary of State for Transport to keep the network moving. So we've had to think about a lot of the operations that we do, maybe doing them in different ways, wearing more protective equipment.
Yeah.
Obviously on our roadworks, we wear a lot of PPE anyway, and hard hats and gloves, but we've had to wear more masks as well, covering, and ensure that any meetings, for example, we have kind of toolbox talks, and at the start of a shift, they'll take place outside now, 2 meters apart, those kind of things. So that's the immediate one, but clearly looking over the next 5-10 years as well, looking how transport is changing. We're looking at things like the growth in traffic, how traffic is changing from petrol, diesel to hybrid to electric in the future, and the kind of technology around that, and kind of PowerPoints around that, and different ways of managing that traffic, different ways of managing peaks and troughs. And I think we're still, in this COVID period, we recognize that maybe those peak times between 7 and 9 and 4 and 6 will change in the future. So we're keeping an eye on that. We get reports every day about where traffic is, and we've lost the morning peak completely, but we've got more traffic around during the daytime, for example. So we'll do a lot on analysis around that data. There's things about air quality, clearly. We've seen on the news that air quality has improved in our cities over this period. So is there then anything we can do in the future around that and capturing that and improving that for the future as well? So those are the main things, kind of traffic growth, air quality, safety always is our number one imperative, how we can always reduce incidents on the network for customers, and all that debate around connected and autonomous vehicles. So those are the kind of issues that are really challenging, but really exciting as well. Some real opportunities around that, and through COVID, some real opportunities around the, obviously, sadness around it all, but looking at what we can do. Good story around that is we do safety tours, for example, and health and safety and well-being. So what we're doing now is, instead of us all going out on those safety tours, we're having maybe 1 or 2 people just doing that with a camera. So the person with the camera shows us around, and we can point anywhere that we want to go. And all of us, I'm working at home, we're all working from our homes. We can still do safety tours out on the network because we've got a person with a camera there. And, even on a return to offices and a return to work, we can see that there are benefits in that. So we're not exposing a lot of people to safety issues around that. There's 1 or 2 key people that we'll have out there, but we can do that from our offices, and global offices as well. We can share it with. We do a lot of work with other governments in other countries. We could share kind of international safety tours as well, and even with academia as well, and for students. So we're looking at opportunities to do that with maybe civil engineering students as well. They can come out on a safety tour. Would have been impossible in the past, but clearly there's no real limit on numbers to do a virtual safety tool.
That's excellent. Yes, yeah. There are quite a lot of new things and new ways of thinking coming out of this, aren't there? So it's not all bad news, as you say. That's brilliant. Thank you. So part of the students' work is that they have to look at strategic management and strategic leadership. And it's that sort of sense, if you could just give us about, how you talked about the sort of the 5-year plan. It's how leaders can sort of move the organisation in the direction it wants them to go. What leadership strategies do you have in place?
Yeah. So we use something called Future Engage Deliver, which is something which promoted in the business, maybe about 10 years ago. And all our managers have been taking that through that approach. And it's approach that was led by someone called Steve Ratcliffe, who's written a book about it called Leadership, Plain and Simple. And very good, very simple approach to management and leadership in all our organizations. So we've taken all our teams through that, and it's basically what it says on the tin. And a lot of organizations have used it, Shell and the NHS and others. And I advise people to Google it, and there is actually a website called FED, or Future Engage Deliver. A lot of information around that there. But in simple terms, it's future, as a leader, engaging with your people about what the future looks like, coalescing around that and supporting them, that engaged group of people to deliver with you. So it's very kind of inclusive, very much this is the vision of what we want to do, already kind of laid out to you what our vision is for the future. Okay, then how can we engage with our people and collaborate with our kind of delivery partners, stakeholders to reach that vision? And then, okay, once you've decided how to do that, clearly there are processes around that of governance and assurance around that to ensure that you actually deliver it to time, cost, quality, and safety, which are our 4 watchwords in construction.
Right, excellent, thank you. So leading on a little bit from that then is how would you describe the culture of your organisation?
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting question, really, really good one, because I think it changes and develops over time and period. I've been with Harwes England a very long time, since it was started in 1995. So over that period, I've seen a lot of change, and I think every organisation has to look at change and how we're going to take our people with us. So when you're talking about the culture of the business, we always look for flexibility within our people, and that kind of supporting and listening to people to take them through change. Everything is changing around us all the time. There's never a static state.
No.
And it's how we as individuals respond to that, and also as leaders, how we support people through change as well. I recognize that people regard change in different ways. Some can take that very kind of personally, very negatively, and I need to listen to those people. And that's part of the culture, if you like, coming back to that question of what skills do I need to do that? What soft skills do I need to do that? So my approach and the approach we advocate is very inclusive. So looking at the various opportunities and platforms that we use to share information about change. We'll have change programs, but people like to receive that information in very, very different ways. Some are kind of early adopters and will go with it. Others like to kind of sit back and reflect on change and how it affects them personally and their families as well. So as a bigger organization, we will try and look at the most appropriate ways to share that information with different groups. So in terms of the culture, developing those soft skills, supporting staff through change and listening, but at the end, actually making the change as well, being decisive and say, yeah, okay, this is the way that we're going to do it now. We've explained it. We've taken on board your comments as far as we can. This is the journey that we're now on. we want most of you, all of you on that journey as well. We're a growing organisation all the time. We've got huge amounts of investment. So in that RIS1 period I talked about, we had £15 billion worth of investment, 2015 to 2020. In 2020 to 25, we got £27 billion worth of investment. So it's huge. Yeah. So definitely need to be connected on the culture of how we're going to achieve that together. And it's a very supportive culture within our business and with our delivery partners as well. All our contractual arrangements are very much collaborative frameworks now, rather than the old-fashioned adversarial client-contractor relationships. Yes. We recognise that often our delivery partners have some really great ideas. So it's creating that culture where we listen to that and we'll take on board those the views and their very good ideas as well.
Brilliant, thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you. And that leads us quite nicely into communication, actually, because I know that a lot of them are intertwined, aren't they? So it's just that sense of, first of all, sort of how the decisions are made, and then how they're communicated to people in the organisation.
Yeah. So clearly, a lot of the decisions come from the political decisions of the government at the time. Yes. Where we started as a kind of civil service organisation, and as I said, we're still a kind of government organisation with one stakeholder, the Secretary of State. So every 5 years or so, we'll work with the parent Department for Transport, and you get those strategies coming down and business plans and delivery plans coming down. And I'll say, and I've worked through most governments since 1986 as a government official, and largely around transport, similar sort of direction of travel for the sort of organisational approach and what we were asked to deliver. Yes. And that is useful. It's all around keeping the economy moving. There's that kind of basic approach, and it's just the different ways that we do that. I, for example, lead on a lot of the smart motorways as I've talked about. So that's making the most of the road network. So how do we communicate that kind of internally? Is through the different, say, business plans that we have, and outside as well to stakeholders and others. We publish all those delivery plans, and in the current period that we're in now, our road investment strategy 2, we're working on that now. So that's going to be published very, very soon. The roads investment period 1 has been published, and it's on all our websites as well. Huge amount of information. We produce clearly our annual reports as well, strategies, and we've got strategies leading up to kind of 2050, for example, for looking at a period when we want to kind of our aim for 2040, 2050 is for no one to be killed or seriously injured whilst travelling or working on our network. Yes. So we want our network to be fit for the 21st century, and in all of the work that we do and all the documents we publish, we're listening and predicting and responding to the needs of customers. So that's kind of ties into all the I call it the governance and assurance around that. So there's processes and procedures that come down from Secretary of State to Department of Transport. We'll then put those into our kind of business planning, strategic planning, roads investment, and then obviously the delivery out the other end.
Right, okay, that's great, thank you. And would you be happy to share your own personal leadership style?
Yeah, so and we're all different, and I think we need to kind of respect different styles as well. I think that's what I've learned over my career. I always kind of advise people to maybe take something like a Myers-Briggs approach to understand your own personality. Yes. Because my approach will be different from yours, different to others as well. But all of them are, we must respect those different approaches and and look at how we can actually develop our own approaches too. So mine, I think, is a very kind of reflective approach, a very inclusive. I like to, ask and listen to a range of different views, and then I'll take that decision. That's a very, I say, very reflective approach, very considered approach. Others, other leaders I know that I've worked with, and you'll have seen it as well, take a very directive approach, saying, yeah, this is it. This is the approach that I want to be taken. There's room for that as well. Certainly, the analogy is if there's a fire and the alarm bell goes off, you don't all sit around and discuss, and reflect on that. You got to do it and you got to make it happen. Then there's no argument around those. So it's very much around what's the most appropriate style for that situation. And we can walk, as individuals, we can walk the line of those different approaches as well. The best leaders that I've worked with have those different strategies in different situations with their people. All my people are very, very different. So I hope I've got kind of an authentic approach with each one of them. And I've got an understanding, I think, what works with one person may not work with another. So that makes it a bit harder, a bit more challenging as a leader. Yes. But, I like people. I like working with people. We call each other kind of people persons. I like engaging with all ages as well. A lot of the work I do with graduates and with Coventry University is around that. I've reached that stage in my career when I want to share, my experiences and develop the new talent for the next generation. So my advice is around leadership styles is look around at the different ones that you admire and also the ones you don't admire. And we've got a phrase called steal with pride. If there's something that you like, take some of that and you will develop your own sort of personal approach from that mix of others. So I'm the product, if you like, as we all are, of our experiences, what we've come across in others, good and bad. So I've seen, approaches that just haven't worked and would work for me. And even if I tried them, that's not authentic for me. And we live in changing times right now around diversity inclusion. Really important to acknowledge and recognise that often as leaders we haven't got that right on diversity inclusion. Huge amount in the press and around that now. We're taking that very seriously as an organisation. Some really difficult issues that every company is facing around that, and we need to have big conversations around that going forward about how we can all improve on diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really helpful. Thank you. That's really good. So some of our students will be looking at coaching and mentoring, and I just wondered if you had either such schemes in your organisation or you have sort of experience of that as a manager.
Yeah, both really. So yeah, I'm a mentor to a lot of our graduates. So just last week I was interviewing on our graduate scheme. It's something I've been involved in for quite a few years. I'm an assessor. I'm a kind of behavioural coach as well.
Yes.
In the business too. So I'll always look for the opportunities to do the assessment centres, to interview graduates onto our graduate scheme. And then beyond that as well, for not just graduates, but for colleagues as well, looking and setting in time to mentor, to help and support their development. So mentoring is very interesting. So for me, it's mentoring. I can tell you what it isn't, and then I'll probably explain what it is. Mentoring isn't doing the job for them or telling, your mentee how to do it. It's discussing with mentee what their issues are and suggesting avenues and signposting. So a lot of the work I do with mentees is kind of listening at what the issue is, asking them their views on it, and signposting kind of where they can find further help on those things as well. And I'll do that with a range of people within our business, of whether it's kind of new people to the business, whether it's graduates, with internal people who are maybe looking for promotion as well. So I'll spend a lot of time talking about CVs and interview technique as well. I do a bit of a talk on winning CVs, and it's something I do actually with Coventry University on the Global Leaders Programme. I'll talk about, I call it preparing for the workplace. So it's around behaviours around the workplace, around diversity and inclusion, around what does a good CV look like, and around interview technique as well. Because we've got some really good young people out there, and I want to, as much as I can, support that next generation of leaders.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that concludes our chat for today. So thank you so much once again for your time today. Really great answers, and that will really help support our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for the time.
Bye bye.